What's up, YouTube? It's your boy TPGTCG back at it again with another Riftbound video. Today we're going to be going over how to play Ahri. I hope you guys liked my how to play Kaisa guide. Shout out to Max Tapera, who reached out to me and corrected some things in that video that I said. So we're still learning as we go. The game does come out Friday, so there's still a lot to learn. If I say anything wrong, of course, leave a comment down below and correct me, and I'll do my best to fix that in the future videos. I'm still learning the game, so all of this take with a grain of salt. Most of it comes from my extensive knowledge of card games, as well as just the game has been out for 3-4 months. And people play testing for even longer, so that's how we have all this information. So that being said, let's hop right into this. All right, so here we are. We have the Ahri guide. Today we're going to be covering the legend Ahri from Set 1 Origins. She is green-blue. And she's a controlled deck that has access to ramp as well as ways to swing the game in her favor through spell cards and unit cards. And I'm excited to talk about it because it's one of the champions that I'm enjoying the most and one of the decks that I'm enjoying the most in the game right now. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. Let's hop right into that. Okay, so here we have Ahri. Ahri is Calm and Mind, also known as Blue and Green. We have the legend Ahri on the left, and then we have Ahri the champion on the right. Yeah, so we'll sort of talk about it. There's another Ahri champion that we'll talk about in a little bit. However, this is the Ahri that's going to be in almost every single Ahri deck. The other one I've only seen in a couple lists. I think they both have their merits. However, this one's the one you're going to see very frequently. So the legend Ahri is the one that's going to be sitting outside the game, the one that you can use this effect. Basically, it says whenever an enemy unit attacks a battlefield you control, give it -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1 might. So essentially, just whenever a unit attacks a battlefield, you get to give it -1, which is just sort of a pretty awesome debuff to control the battlefields in your favor. And it just means that your opponents are going to have to be stronger before challenging you at a battlefield. And you will see with our champion Ahri that most of the decks uses their main champion unit. Says when I hold, you score 1 point. So essentially, whenever this Ahri holds a battlefield, you get 2 points instead of 1, which means you're going to be just holding this one battlefield or holding one battlefield throughout the game and winning that way instead of conquering multiple battlefields, which is a really cool mechanic. And we'll see we have ways to sort of force battles on your battlefields, even if your opponent or opponents are going for other battlefields and are like, you know what, just let them have that battlefield, whatever. There's ways to force combat on your battlefields, which is really cool and really interesting removal. So let's get into that. So these are some of the spells you'll see in Ahri decks. These are the ones that are the most common. We have Charm. This is a 1-drop that just moves an enemy unit. So you can move an enemy unit from a different battlefield onto your battlefield to force combat, and then remove a unit that way by reducing its power and sort of having an interesting form of removal and game plan there, forcing them to battle on your battlefield and weakening up their battlefields if you do want to push for multiple battlefields as well, which is very cool. Next we have Time Warp, which is probably the strongest version of Ahri. This is a 10-drop spell that just takes a turn after this one, and then you banish this. So essentially for 10, you can just take an extra turn, allowing you to get multiple points and rack up multiple battlefield holds in sort of a single turn, but that turn is actually, doubled because you're taking 2 turns, which is just really, really insane. And that's going to be sort of the best version of Ahri. It's going to be sort of this value control deck up until you hit that 10 runes, and then from there you're going to sort of time warp to accelerate your game plan and say, you know what, this one battlefield is going to net me a lot of points here, and that's how I'm going to win the game. Next, we have Ahri's signature spell, which is Foxfire. I've seen some lists play this, but most of them just focus on low value spells and units, then just drop a time warp. But Foxfire is a 3-drop that has hidden, so you may hide it for resources to react later for 0. And then action, play on your turn in showdowns, kill any number of units out of battlefield with a total of 4 might or less. So you can reduce might and then play this to sort of have a removal that's hidden out of the game, which is pretty cool. We have Defy, which is a reaction spell, so you can play at any time. And you just get a counter spell that costs no more than 4 and no more than a color of rune. So this is sort of just counterspell from Magic the Gathering, for those of you familiar with that. Just a very good card that says no. And this is just very powerful in that Ahri deck. And then we have Stupefy. If you saw the Kaisa video, this is a card that's probably going to be in every single blue deck. It's just a really good reaction that gives -1 and draws a card. -1 might, and then draws a card, which especially in Ahri, that's a thing you're going to be wanting to do a lot, is giving those -1 mites to force battles and control the battlefields that way. Moving on to some of the units. Here we have the second Ahri I was talking about. We have Ahri Inquisitive. Ahri Inquisitive is not in nearly as many decks. I will have multiple decks in the description down below for you to look at as well. I'll try and feature at least one that has Ahri Inquisitive. But when I attack or defend, give an enemy unit here -2 might for the turn to a minimum of 1. This is essentially just a stronger version of your champion, your legend ability, which is just more control through minusing. It's not as good because whereas Ahri Alluring, the other one, the green one we have here, Ahri Alluring actually has a game plan that's pushing towards and accelerating towards, whereas your legend is just sort of helping facilitate that and control the board. And so I think both are strong. However, I do think Inquisitive is worse right now, but that could change in the future for sure. Then we have Blitzcrank and Passive. This is another champion unit. It's 5-drop, 5 might. It has tank, so it must be assigned combat damage first. And then when you play Blitzcrank to a battlefield, you may move an enemy unit there. And then when I hold return it, you bounce Blitzcrank to the hand. So you can force things to do battle with Blitzcrank and then bounce Blitzcrank back, which is really cool. So you can keep doing that. And that's it's sort of like Charm, but better. And I think that's really cool. We have Thousand-Tailed Watcher. This is a card we talked about in the Kaisa video as well. It's just going to be sort of giving reduction in might to force those battles and swing them in your favor. This is one that I saw in a couple lists I thought was interesting. This is Tasty Faefolk. So it has Accelerate and then Death Knell. I don't know how to say it. Death Knell. Channel 2 runes exhausted and draw 1. So when you die, basically when it dies, you get that effect. So it ramps you and draws, which is really cool. You can use it to push, and then, you know, if it gets removed or if it gets answered, like, cool, I get to ramp and draw a card, which is just really nice, especially because that's what your deck's gonna be wanting to do anyways. Okay, so next we have the gears. These weren't covered in Kaisa because there's really no gears in the Kaisa lists. However, there are gears in Ahri. So we have Zanya's Hourglass, Seal of Insight, and Mask of Foresight. Mask of Foresight is typically played in the sideboard, but I do want to talk about all of these. Seal of Insight, especially the seals, are going to be very powerful cards. You can't really equate them to mana rocks and magic. I think that's going to be the closest thing to them. However, I think it's greatly exaggerated, at least for now. I think you should definitely have a playset of these because I definitely see these cards being very powerful in the future. However, we do know there's rotation in this game, so maybe they'll get rotated out before they're ever too powerful. Not too sure. But Ahri is a deck that does play Seal of Insight because it wants that ramp and it wants to get to that late game, so it can play those time warps. Then we have Zanya's Hourglass, which you can hide. But also the next time a friendly unit would die, kill this instead, and then recall that unit exhausted, which is pretty sick. It just protects your bodies that you want to protect, like that we talked about last turn, which is just really cool. Mask of Foresight, like I said, this one is typically played in the sideboard. It's when a friendly unit attacks or defends alone, you give it +1 might. So it allows you for more effective trading, which is very nice, especially due to all of your abilities sort of reducing might on your opponent's side. This is a way to buff up your units if you just need that little bit extra to get there. Next we have the battlefields. So something Max pointed out to me was in my last videos, I only included the 3 battlefields that I saw in like the topping Kaisa lists. However, there's a lot more battlefields that are very viable. These are sort of the 4 that I picked with Ahri that I think are the best. However, I think there's like 8 viable battlefields for Ahri, maybe more. But these are the 4 that I like the most. So we have Grove of the God Willow, which when you hold there, you draw a card. Really nice because, like I said, you're going to be wanting to hold for the majority of the game 1 battlefield and ramping up that way and winning through that. So you're just going to want to pick ones that are going to give you the most value, right? So drawing one with God Willow. Dreaming Tree, the first time you choose a friendly unit with a spell here, draw 1. So when you, you know, if your opponent conquers it and you charm over there, you can draw a card, which is cool. Obelisk of Power, at the start of each player's first beginning phase, that player channels 1 rune. This helps you ramp, which is another thing we enjoy. And then Windswept Hillock is interesting because units here have ganking, so they can move from battlefield to battlefield. I think this is cool because I think this is actually a really aggressive way to play Ahri. You can control Windswept Hillock, and then once you have this battlefield so locked down, you can just gank over to another battlefield and then control it from there, right? Like if you have your champion unit Ahri, you can gank over to another battlefield, hold there, and then draw a card that way and start being able to allow you to hold multiple battlefields. And I think that's a really cool, interesting one. I think these three are the three that I'm going to be starting in Ahri with: the Grove of the Godwillow, Dreaming Tree, and Obelisk of Power. However, I think Windswept Hillock is very cool and can definitely do some cool things with that one. And then here is a regional open list. This is 7th place from one of the Chinese regionals. I'm going to have the Piltover archive link in the description down below, as well as a couple more lists that I thought were interesting. This is one of the ones that's focusing on Time Warp, and it's just very powerful, utilizing that Time Warp to get those extra turns and control the game through having extra turns, which is very powerful. This one also plays On Guard, which is another spell card that we didn't really talk about too much, but it also deals in might manipulation, and that's what part of this deck's whole strategy is going to be, is might manipulation and forcing favorable battles for you, which is just really good. So like I said, there'll be links in the description down below. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I really enjoy making these, so show some support, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this Riftbound video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below which deck you want to see me cover next and which deck you're going to be picking up in set 1 Origins for Riftbound. I really enjoy Riftbound, so I hope you guys do too. I love making content for this game, so stick around for more of that. And that being said, I'll see you next time. Bye.